The Secrets of Stargate is brought to you by the StarQuest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give.
You're listening to The Secrets of Stargate.
Lieutenant West, Jackson has identified the seventh symbol.
All right, here we go. We are about to try to make a connection.
All we gotta do is bust out of here, commandeer the ship, and fly on home.
Indeed. You say that a lot.
I know that this could be dangerous. But this is our job, right? It's what we signed on to do.
It was never about going home. It's about getting us to where we're going.
Episode 18. Hi, I'm Jack Berrezzini, and you're listening to The Secrets of Stargate, where we talk about the hidden meanings and deeper layers found in the Stargate movies, TV series, and more. And joining me today are Father Cory Stika. Hi, Father.
How's it going, Jack?
It's going well. And Lisa Jones. Hi, Lisa.
Hey, Jack.
And Victor Lambs. Hey, Victor.
Hi, Jack.
Before we get started the episode, I want to remind everyone to stick around. We've got some fantastic feedback from our listeners that we'll be covering at the end of the show. Today, we are discussing the 18th episode of the first season of SG-1, Sollitudes. You want to give us a breakdown of this episode, Victor?
Oh, absolutely. Jack and Sam go missing after a mission. Teal'c and Daniel can't find them at first, but eventually they do. Jack almost dies in an ice cave, but it's okay because he doesn't. The end. Let me try that one again. SG-1, after heavy fire while on P4A-771, gates back to Earth. Only Daniel and Teal'c make it back to the SGC, however, while Carter and Jack wake up buried in an ice cave, with Jack gravely injured. Carter sets Jack's broken leg and ribs and goes to work chipping a DHD out of a block of ice. Back at the SGC, Sergeant Sylvester Seiler works around the clock to repair the badly damaged Stargate so the search for Carter and Jack can begin. While Carter and Jack huddle for warmth, Daniel develops a plan for finding his lost teammates but comes up empty at every turn. Eventually, with Jack either minutes or hours or days away from death, Carter files up the Stargate back to Earth, but again, alas, to no avail. Back in the SGC, Sergeant Seiler, with a little help from Daniel, works out that the Stargate network was not built by the Goa'uld at all, but rather by AT&T in the early 1900s. And that, oh my gosh, they were wrong. It was Earth all along. Pinpointing Jack and Carter's location to be 50 miles out of McMurdo Station in the Antarctic, General Hammond launches a rescue operation. Everything turns out fine, and Area 51 gets their own Stargate. The end.
Yeah, that's better.
Beautiful.
So before we get into talking about this episode, there's a great outtake from this episode. So when they recorded it, as it was, Amanda Tapping mentioned this in a convention, that they had actually used a studio that was set to below freezing. So they're in this studio in Vancouver where it was, -2, -3, as she put it, which I would assume Celsius. So, about 30 degrees Fahrenheit, give or take. And so the producer, Martin Wood, says, let's, if there's some way you can bring some levity into it and to lighten things up, let's do this. So at one point, as they're chipping away at the DHD trying to open it, Amanda Tapping says, you were MacGyver for 7 years. You were, McGadget, McGizmo. We got, belt buckles. You could make a nuclear bomb. You were MacGyver. I'm stuck in an iceberg with MacGyver. And Richard Dean Anderson looks at the camera as the crew is dying laughing. Amanda Tapping later at this convention says, "I thought I was fired," because he did not look pleased. But apparently, obviously, he was okay with it because she continued in the series for 10 years plus Atlantis, so she did okay. But if you go on YouTube, and I'll make sure Jack's got the link to it, and we'll make sure it gets put in the show notes, because it is absolutely hilarious. Just especially Richard Dean Anderson's expression in this.
I'm impressed, too, that they had Martin Wood back after that as well. He was the director of this episode, and after this went on to direct 78 more episodes of the Stargate franchise.
He was a very prolific director in this.
Right.
So. Yeah, definitely. And I mentioned this in our chat before the episode, saying that we'd have to break this into 2 parts because so much went on. Obviously, that's a bit of sarcasm because it's a very slow episode, but it's also a very character-focused episode, which I liked a lot. So I enjoyed that about it. What were your other thoughts about it, Father Cory?
Oh, this is, I mentioned before we started recording that I forgot how good this episode was.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of those episodes that as soon as you see what it is, like, oh yeah, because it is very much character development. Especially for Sam, you get to see a lot of personality out of Sam that we don't normally see. And the concern, of course, of the people at SGC, even General Hammond, you get to see a lot of his concern as well.
Right. Yeah. What about you, Lisa?
Yeah, I'm with Father Cory. This is one of my favorite episodes in my memory. But when I watched it again, it's so rich. I mean, it's not action. There's no real adventure. You just see the gate, they go through the gate a couple of times, but it's just, you just see the team bonding. And of course, I'll mention this is a first shipper episode, Jack and Sam ship that is always referred to. So, watching it again, seeing all of that grow and develop. I actually I saw less ship than what I remembered 20 years ago, but it's just, I don't know. It's just one of those just really quietly great episodes of the first season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What about you, Victor?
I think it's got about as much ship as the Voyage of the Mimi, where they did infamously did another cuddling for warmth scene as Gen X middle schoolers across the country know. But no, I like it for what it does for the characters. Turning Daniel Jackson into an astrophysicist was pretty cool for one episode. And of course, Master Sergeant Siler, one of my favorite characters in the entire franchise. Yep.
Got to correct you, Tech Sergeant.
Tech Sergeant, right? Sorry.
Walter's Master Sergeant.
Yeah, that's Tech Sergeant Siler, who is played by Dan Shea, Richard Dean Anderson's stunt double. So it was a nice to see him.
Nice. I didn't know that.
So we've probably seen him on camera before, but not as Sergeant Siler.
And this is one of the few times where he is on camera as Sergeant Siler and he doesn't get hurt.
That's right.
Nice.
And he has more than one line in the episode, so I was pleased with that. And he becomes an astrophysicist at the end too, just about. So
he did.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's
a smart
almost
guy.
a semi-focused character in this episode. He plays a pretty integral part.
Yeah, and
exactly.
This is before we had, a Dr. Felger or a Dr. Lee or a Dr. McKay to be another, smart, sciencey person in it. So they had to kind of delegate that to Daniel, I guess. But the other thing I like about this episode is that there's a conscious effort to clean up a lot of the continuity errors in the show up till this point. So they establish for a fact that the Gate Network was not built by the Goa'uld. And then, at the end, the second Stargate helps to explain some of the cultures that they've discovered where, they evolved after the point where the, Egypt Stargate was buried. Only then they immediately reversed that. And it's clear that the Antarctic Stargate was lost long before the Egypt Stargate was ever around. But so I like it from that. And then, we do have the second Stargate, which they do a lot with over the course of the show.
Yeah, I'm interested to see where that goes.
Because it comes up actually quite prominently eventually. So,
oh, nice. I assume this is not the one that ends up in Atlantis, but I don't know for sure.
No.
Okay, cool.
That's a Pegasus Galaxy Stargate, and they're way cooler.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Nice. It's like
actually. Correct me if I'm wrong. Doesn't this one eventually end up in SGC because the SGC one is stolen?
Yep. It goes to Area 51. The SGC eventually goes into outer space.
Yeah.
Yep.
Huh.
It gets traveled.
Yeah.
Nice. I like this kind of episode where you basically get like an extreme survival scenario that is kind of a laser focus on. It's more of like a character study and how characters do in these extreme situations. This is a bit of synchronicity right here, but I think this on the day that we're recording, Secrets of Star Trek actually put out their episode for the Enterprise episode Shuttle Pod 1, which is the one where Malcolm Reed and Trip are stuck in the shuttle pod, and that's actually one of my favorite episodes of Enterprise. I haven't listened to the episode yet, Cory, so I don't know what
I hate to disappoint you.
You might not want to listen to the episode.
Yeah, let's just say I like this episode a lot better than Shuttle Pod 1.
Yeah.
I hate to break it to you, Jack.
And if you like Shuttle Pod 1, there's an episode of Atlantis that you'll really like. The one where McKay gets stuck underwater.
Oh yeah, actually that one's better.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I just like that whole, last ditch survival scenario.
Oh, yeah.
And it's been a while since I've seen Shuttle Pod 1, to be fair, so it may not be as good as I remember, but I'm also grading on a curve because of the first season of Enterprise.
These are similar type of episodes where you've got the survival. It is different because this is kind of a different situation, and it is frankly a much better episode.
Right.
Season 1 of Stargate is by a large margin better than season 1 of Enterprise. I mean, it's
any
just
Star Trek show.
Yeah, pretty close.
Yeah, so there's a lot of gate mischief happening in this episode too, and some of it is continuity errors. My 8-year-old, actually, our 8-year-old was very quick to point this out when they're trying to dial back to the planet P4A771. Our 8-year-old is watching this. He's going like, "Wait, that's the Abydos address. I have that memorized. They're dialing Abydos." Yep. And of course, they recycled the footage from the very first episode. There's another one where an SG team comes back through the gate, and the gate's shrouded in tarps like it was in the very first episode. and then there's some actual gate mischief that affects the plot. Is kind of a plot error with this as well. When they do find the gate, Carter tries to dial Earth, but then stops and doesn't try to dial any of the other friendly planets, which would have, of course, worked.
Well, and
that would have been the end of the episode.
Yeah,
exactly.
Roll credits.
Yep. Well, it is kind of funny because it does show its time for these episodes where Daniel turns to Teal'c and says, "What happens if you call your home number from your home?" Oh wait, wrong person. Turns to the general. What happens if you try to dial your home number? And of course, you get a busy signal. How many people have heard a busy signal in the last 15 years?
You get your voicemail, right?
Yeah. And which it was funny. I can't remember where I called, but I actually called somewhere not that long ago. I got a busy signal, but busy signals are something we don't hear anymore because you usually have voicemail.
We had cell, we had call waiting.
Yeah, exactly.
Good old 60 hertz.
But yeah, this is definitely, I know we've talked in several other episodes about the whole Sam and Jack ship, and this definitely feels like this would be something that would be throwing fuel on the fire for that.
Yeah, a certain line about his firearm definitely didn't help that. That's for sure.
No.
Yeah.
Well, if you think about it, it's the first episode of the two of them together, right?
Yeah.
You had
you
had Teal'c and Daniel together, and you had Sam and Jack together. So it really just kind of fueled that what if, right? And then of course the whole "I'm gonna die, it was an honor," all of that just kind of stirred it. But it's funny, I don't remember at the time I saw it initially. It was after the little tidbits you get in season 2, season 3, and then the full on, I think they went full on ship in season 4, and then everyone went back to season 1 and went, "Oh yeah, there was that episode, right, of the two of them together," and really tried to find more in it. I'm not sure it was set up that way on purpose.
I think the way it's played in this episode, and this is coming from having just watched up to this point, not having that retroactive view of it, I feel like it was played more for like the awkward comedy in this episode, at least, than it was for any sort of like serious relationship.
Yeah. Awkward comedy and survival. I mean, just this show the necessity of survival. I mean, that's one of the things they tell you. If somebody's suffering with hypothermia, you get under a blanket with them to give your body heat to them to help them survive. And of course, everybody chuckles about, especially Boy Scouts when they're learning about this, winter survival tips and Boy Scouts. They're laughing about, "Oh yeah, I hope there's a cute girl that I have to give, climb into the sleeping bag with, But beyond that, it is an essential part of survival in a winter situation like this. That if someone has the real issue where they might have hypothermia, you got to give your body heat to them so they can survive.
Course,
right. Yeah.
I've had broken ribs, so I kind of felt for Jack there, where she's. Like he wakes up and she's laying on him, and I'm sorry, but that was the most awful pain in the world for me. And so I can't even fathom laying flat on my back when I had broken ribs, more or less. Someone laying on me. That no. So So that was a moment.
One thing I will say about this, Amanda Tapping played this amazing. That you could see the pain in her eyes as she's wrapping the splint on Jack's leg, and he's crying out in pain. I mean, it really played it like Sam was hurting as much emotionally as he was physically in doing this, but she understood the need to splint his leg so that he could, move around and do what he needed to do.
I think we saw a real strength of character for her, right, in this episode. A little more depth.
Mm-hmm. I also appreciated how I feel like Jack O'Neill's kind of defense mechanism in a lot of situations is sarcastic humor, and I appreciate that her attitude was she goes along with it, but at a certain point she's like, no, we need to actually talk about what we're going to do in the situation, and she kind of pushed back against that. So I like to see that, because I know that it almost seems like his character he's dealing with a lot of this trauma, and like with his son and all these things he's gone through, so he uses humor as a deflection, and she's able to cut through that.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And the really cool thing is, I was trying to look up the episode, but there is an episode of Atlantis, the season that she was on, where she basically is injured, lying on the floor of a cave. There's a ticking clock, and is dependent upon Rodney McKay and Kaylee from Firefly to rescue her. And so I think that when we get to that episode, I think that's probably her best performance in the entire run of Stargate is her performance where she's lying injured, trying to crack jokes, but in so much pain. And she just, it's really a good moment for her as an actress, not as a character. Of course, it's quite miserable, but it's just kind of neat that symmetry there.
Nice.
And I think we have to talk about the big twist in this episode, since I think that was the whole point of the episode, and everything else was just kind of filler to get to that point.
The call was coming from inside the house the whole time.
Yeah. Yeah. Or by Troy McClure, like, Planet of the Apes, the musical, oh my gosh, I was wrong. It was Earth all along. So yeah, but actually, there's a 1959 episode of The Twilight Zone called I Shot an Arrow into the Air, where like the first manned space flight goes up and comes down on a distant planet, and the crew turns against each other and kills each other, and then they find out they crash landed in Arizona, like miles away from the space center or something. So this was a little less grim than that, but yeah, I think it's a very good, very effective twist. I thought it would have been better if Carter had that like realization that they were on Earth before like everybody showed up and told her that she was on Earth. I think that would have been a much like realizing that she and Jack were going to die so close to home yet so far away.
That would have been good, because the way they play the episode, you can kind of get the hints that they're on Earth before they even reveal that. Like about halfway through, I was pretty sure they're just like in Antarctica or the Arctic or something, and the way it was set up was not the best to execute that twist right there. I do like, though, when she climbs out of the glacier and is looking around, she's like, it's an ice planet. And I almost feel like that was kind of hanging a lantern on the fact that in science fiction, you always get these planets that are just one biome. It's like Earth has all these different biomes, but in any science fiction planet, it's either like a desert planet or a jungle planet or an ice planet. And you can't have all of that on one planet.
And half the planets in Stargate look like Vancouver, British Columbia.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah, it was good to. Of course, this is the first time we see General Hammond outside of the SGC. He actually got to leave the bunker and go out into the world. So,
and wear a parka and say, "Get to the chopper."
Yeah.
Or get Jack to the chopper.
But not through the Stargate quite yet.
Not yet. Eventually, he will go through the Stargate, just not yet.
I was really hoping for a At the Mountains of Madness tie-in, but we did not get that, because that would have been cool.
I forgot to look up, but I love the scenery where she eventually climbs out of. Just beautiful.
Yeah, I was looking that up, and I'm assuming they filmed that in Canada in some sort of proximity to where they normally made the show, but they did not give any direct filming locations.
Yeah.
So,
yes. See, you said beautiful scenery. I'm further to the east, and I actually wrote down nice frozen hellscape.
That's beautiful mountains. I mean, I wouldn't mind visiting. I don't want to live there, but I could visit there once in a while.
That's funny.
It did invoke the planet that they're on in Interstellar, where Matt Damon tries to kill everybody.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen that movie, so
I say it's been too long.
It's all right. But yeah, I like the part where Daniel is kind of figuring out and piecing everything together, and I feel like there's a lot of non sequiturs in his logic where he's like, well, maybe because the Stargate misfired, it would go to another Stargate that was close to it. Like, okay, but why?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because you had Daniel Jackson suddenly doing Carter's job, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It is Stargate logic, and you see a lot of that throughout the show, where it's like, well, maybe if we just had a more powerful power source, the Stargates would go further, that sort of thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
But and another thing is we finally get confirmation that the Stargate network is inside our galaxy, whereas in the movie they had said you're going to another universe or you're going across the universe. Yep. We finally, that's another thing that they kind of fixed the continuity of in this episode. They made all the Stargates in our galaxy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and it's and they did, they say that the reason why the Stargate jumped away, or the wormhole jumped away, is because of a power surge. And of course, that leads to, like you said, Victor, where eventually it's like, well, if we give it more powers, 1.21 gigawatts, and we can go to the Pegasus Galaxy. Oh, wait, that's different movie.
Yeah.
Well, one thing we haven't talked about is it's on Earth, but how a second Stargate on Earth opens up. I mean, just so much more, right? I mean, now they have a DHD. Now they have a second Stargate, which we know, those of us have seen the more episodes, lots more chaos, things going on Earth that just didn't happen. But it was kind of if I remember correctly, when I saw it the first time, it was like, wait a minute, why would there be two Stargates? Like, that's crazy. Right. But they use it really well going forward.
Mm-hmm.
They can bring in the Russians. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
And the NID.
And the NID.
The NID, it gets stolen. I mean, it's missing. I mean, it's just a little bit more development or, plot. The plot thickens, right, as to what's going on.
And they definitely kind of say, well, it's clear that this Stargate was here before the one that was found in Egypt. And so this one got buried, by the Ice Age. So then they just brought in another one and planted it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
which also this ties in nicely then to Atlantis.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Right.
And the ancient chair.
And how we find Atlantis.
Yeah, and we'll be back to this spot in a few seasons. So
nice.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, we go back to Antarctica a lot of times. That's where they find the ancient with the pandemic and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So,
what's a pandemic?
I don't know.
We know nothing about that.
Yeah.
Check us out in a couple seasons.
Yeah.
One thing I like too is they hung a lantern on the fact that the first couple episodes everything shakes when they dial it. They said, I can't remember exactly what they said, but we put buffers on it, some kind of power buffers or some stabilizers on it.
Yeah, how they found the Atlantis Stargate was very cool. I think they looked for the seismic tremors and stuff, and that I thought was really cool.
I thought it was a nice
you get that
right to the original, the way everything shook.
Yep.
Right. You also get a Jurassic Park kind of thing there with all the cups of water start shaking.
Mm-hmm.
I do also like when Sam is troubleshooting the DHD. At one point, she just like turns it off and then turns it back on again.
Reboots it.
That's a pro move right there.
Yeah.
Too bad. The number one thing any IT person tells you, right? Did you turn it off? Did you turn it back on?
But we don't see the guts of it yet. Eventually, we'll start seeing the crystals and everything inside of it. But for now, it's just she reaches down and it powers off and powers back on.
Nice.
Yeah. Too bad the Serpent Guard, who was frozen with the DHD, didn't think of that. And, I'm also wondering, like, was he just there waiting for the Ice Age to move in? Like, he's like, I'm just going to, here comes the glacier. It's another, 4 centimeters closer today. And
yeah, exactly.
So hang on a second. So if that gate was buried in an Ice Age and then the Gould brought a second one, so are we saying the Gould were there with the first one? Or are we saying the Ancients were there with the first one? Because why is there Serpent Guard if it was with the Ancients?
Yeah, I'm trying to think in my continuity here. The Ancients...
They hadn't thought of that
left the Milky Way 15,000 years ago or something. Then
which
went to Pegasus,
been an Ice Age.
Came back or something. Yeah. I'm trying to remember exactly how that works
and
out.
and I can't remember. Maybe eventually, I can't remember, but eventually, I think the series does kind of address that there is a gap between the ancients developing the Stargate network and the Goa'uld coming to power.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that the two don't match. So I don't know. I can't remember though off the top of my head. I never even thought about that, to be honest.
Yeah. I do like though the Kawoosh cutting the hole through the ice and the rock. That looked really cool. The set that they had for that was well thought out. Though I think probably extended a little bit too far into the background, but it looked cool.
And it's something we see again later too.
Yeah, I was gonna say we get to see that 100 days.
Yep.
Nice. Yeah, it's they did a good job with the scenery, and I do want to see. I'm excited to see like when a Stargate gets moved, does that circle continue all the way through? Because every Stargate we've seen so far, it's just like the platform with like the stairs and everything. But I want to know how integral that is to the structure of the device itself.
We see them in space.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Underwater.
Nice. Yep.
Yeah. So
nice.
It expands.
Yeah. Did you have anything else to add about this episode, Father Cory?
A couple of things. First of all, I do have to correct myself. You're right. He was Master Sergeant Seiler. For some reason, I thought he was a tech sergeant. I got to correct myself on that. I just happened to look it up online. But I get a kick out of that. He doesn't do Scotty timing.
Right.
General Hammond says, he says it's going to take 24 hours to fix it. And General Hammond says, well, I need it quicker. And Sergeant Seiler immediately says, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
He doesn't do the Scotty timing of double the estimate. So when he says it's 24 hours, it is 24 hours.
Yeah.
And in one of the director's commentaries, I heard apparently Dan Shea has problems saying his S's. So the writers that's why they named him Sylvester Seiler, and then they gave him dialogue that had just loads of S words in it. So he would lisp through it. But I love him. He's one of my favorite characters.
Yeah, and then we get Master Sergeant Harriman gets a lot more. Walter gets a lot more role in this one. And then one thing I was thinking about, of course, as soon as they realize that the second gate is in south of McMurdo, from Colorado Springs to McMurdo has to be at least 12 to 20 hours. And of course, they're going to wait to actually fly out to the location until, General Hammond and Tilk and Daniel get there.
Yep.
There was like a Learjet. Come on.
But still, it's going to be, you're going from the middle of the northern hemisphere to the bottom of the southern hemisphere. It's a little bit of a flight.
Yeah.
But of course, you had to have them there to find them. And, the general was there and everything. And oh, yeah.
They could have done like the Lord of the Rings thing where they just wake up in a bed and are all cleaned up.
They pretty close. I mean, but they didn't. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Well, we also, where Teal'c would not give up, right? Teal'c and Daniel, leave no one behind. We're just going to keep going. So it wouldn't have been right if they weren't there.
That's true for dramatic tension.
Right. Yeah. In their big puffy jackets and stuff.
What about you, Lisa? Did you have anything else to add?
No. I just we're wrapping up season 1. So
yeah,
it's just kind of fun to, I don't know. It just gets better and better. And next week's another favorite episode of mine. So we're just, I don't know, just trucking along.
Nice. What about you, Victor?
I like this episode too. Like I said, it establishes a lot of things for the continuity. It's a good character episode, and more Seiler is always a good thing.
Yes. All right. We have some feedback from one of our listeners. Sydney Orndorff says, thank you so much for making this podcast. I started out as a Jimmy Akin's Mysterious World fan. I still am, of course, and was happy to find out that SQPN had developed a Stargate show. I discovered/became a fan of Stargate during the pandemic, starting with Atlantis actually, then starting to watch SG-1. The characters and their camaraderie, interactions, and growth, paired with the good old sci-fi settings, props, and plots, won me over. I rarely run into other Stargate fans, so it's so nice to see it have a place to listen to fans discussing the show.
Oh, yeah.
I'd love to start hearing some episodes on Atlantis soon, though I know you seem to be taking a chronological approach. But that just happens to be the way I feel about it. Thanks so much again. Yeah, it's fantastic to hear, and that is something we can maybe look at in the future. I know that starting out, we kind of looked at doing SG-1, then bringing in Atlantis when it starts in the continuity, but I'm definitely open to bringing it in sooner if we want to kind of change things up a bit.
Yeah, well, I think all of us would like to get into Atlantis because it's just as much fun, but it's different fun. It's got a different flavor to it, but it's still just as much fun. So we're looking forward to talking about that as well. But yeah, that's great. We're glad to hear from you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's always good to hear from people and get feedback on that, and we have a lot of fun doing it. So
yep.
And I gotta say, I love that she said that just happens the way I feel about it.
Yes.
Yes. Yes, as a good reference right there.
Yep.
Before we go, we'd like to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create the Secrets of Stargate, including Robert S., Lisa B., Joseph R., Rick M., and Kelly W. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the Secrets of Stargate and all the shows at StarQuest. You can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. Be sure to follow the show in Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or on the SQPN YouTube channel. To find previous episodes of Secrets of Stargate and to send feedback, please visit sqpn.com/Stargate. You can email us at stargate@sqpn.com or follow StarQuest on social media at facebook.com/StarQuestMedia or on Twitter at sqpn.com. You can also join the StarQuest fan club mailing list by texting StarQuest to 66866. Send StarQuest to 66866. We'll be back next time when we'll be discussing the next episode of SG-1, Tin Man. Until then, Father Cory, thank you for joining me and sharing the secrets of Stargate.
Thank you, Jack.
Lisa Jones, thank you as well.
Thanks, Jack.
And Victor Lambs, thank you too.
I'm here, Jack. You can sleep now.
Thank you, Victor. And once again, I'm Jack Berrezzini. Thank you for listening to The Secrets of Stargate on StarQuest.
Anyway, I'm sorry, but that just happens to be how I feel about it. What do you think?